Alright, in this video we are going to be talking about how to take the sphere now that we've blocked in the bouncing animation and add a few more effects. In this case, what I'm going to add is a squash and stretch animation to the sphere to give it a little more cartoon-like life. There's a lot of different ways of handling this. Again, because I'm just going with the animating everything on the ball example here, as mentioned in the first video. There is some problems with this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it this way just to kind of showcase the idea, and I'll talk about what the problems are and how you'd get around them later. So again, we've blocked in the bounce here. We've worked on the time, and it's important to note that you kind of want to work in these passes, because if I were to start working on the squash and stretch at the same time I was doing trying to get the timing of the bouncing, I'd have to edit all those keyframes when I'm trying to fix the timing on the one thing. So it's more variables that I have to just to move at the same time and mess with it at the same time, which increases my chances of mistakes happening. Um, it's totally doable when you have experience, but as beginning animators, I do recommend, again, work in passes, get the most important things done and timed right, and then go back on later and add animations when that timing is right, because then it's easier. So in this case, I have my timing, we'll just say, right, and what I'm going to do is at the frame 8, I'm going to have this get squashed. So all this is a property of scale. Now, if we scale it right now, and there's no animation on this, so I can scale this up and down whatever I want, and it won't matter because there's no keyframes on it. It's always going to scale from the center. That's the default place. What I want, which is part of the problem, which we'll talk about later, is needs to scale from the bottom. So if I tap the D key, I can enter pivot point mode and change this pivot point to scale from the bottom. I tap the D key, Delta key, go to pivot point mode, move this pivot point to the bottom, tap the D key again, and now when I use the squash and stretch scale, you can see it will scale from the bottom. And again, in this demo, this will work fine. So I haven't set any keyframes yet. I'm just showcasing the scale values, how it's going to scale. And what I'm going to do is right before it hits the ground, i.e. frame 7, I'm going to keyframe scale. Granted, in this particular case, I only need keyframe Y. So, I mean, because that's all I'm going to be messing with this in this. So I guess I'll go ahead and just continue to do that. So right click on scale Y, key selected, go to frame 8, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to squash this down. So it's going to be kind of sudden. I'm just going to do 0.5 just to keep these numbers nice and even. That's too much, I think. 0.7. And then I'm going to key that. And what I'm going to do is on the rebound, I'm going to stretch. One of the principles of animation to kind of give it, again, it's more cartoony, but I'm going to have it stretch. So it's going to go beyond the value of 1. I'll just do 1.4, we'll say. And it's going to get stretchy. So I'm just slowly scrubbing through this. Goes down, goes down, goes down. I needed that keyframe of 1 there because I needed a holding frame. I don't want it to suddenly start changing here at frame 1 and then scaling down to 0.7. I want it to be a very instant pop. Maybe too fast, but that's better than having it scale over time, almost like the ball is predicting it's going to hit the ground. Then it's going to bounce back up. Stretch, that's fine. We can have that go over time like that. And then when it comes back down, we're going to want it to just squash again. But at some point between here and frame 22 before it's the ground again, we want it to revert back to 1. So I'm just going to go about halfway, change this to 1. That might be too soon, but we'll find out. So goes up, stretch, it's stretching, goes back down, and again, I need a holding frame. Holding frames are, again, if you don't want any value change. We talked about this in our little cube exercise, but we want a holding frame when we don't want change. So it went to 1 here, holding frame of 1 right here, Key selected. Frame 20, it's hitting the ground, but it's coming down from less force. It's not as, it didn't go as high. So I don't remember what I put for the last one. I put 0.7. I should put another squash value, but honestly, I probably shouldn't put it as low as 0.7. So maybe I'll do 0.7, because I have 4 bounces. I'm going to do 0.75. So it's a little bit less. Not much less, but it is a little bit less. So key selected. And you can see I'm just scrubbing the timeline now. Scrub, 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 hit, back up, stretch, 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 back down, it's back down to 1, staying 1, staying 1. There's my holding frame for 1, hits the ground at 0.75. And I'm only using numbers because it's easier for me to basically talk about it. You don't have to be so precise with your numbers. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and go back up to the stretch again. This time I'm going to do a lesser value than whatever the first one was, because again, it has less momentum, so it shouldn't be squashing and stretching as much. It's losing that energy. So maybe I'll, on this next peak, I'll do like 1.2 or something. And again, these numbers are purely to demonstrate it's losing power, not really anything being exact. So we can see bounce, bounce, and then again, I'm probably going to say, okay, I'm going to go back to 1 here, because it should return back to 1, somewhere halfway. It's going to go back to its normal form. And again, we don't want the ball knowing it's about to hit the ground. So there's my holding frame again. And it's going to hit the ground. And I think I'll do I'll do 0.9. Because I don't think I'm even bother doing that in the last one, of course. So 0.9. And then up. And then maybe I'll just do like 1.1 on this peak. Key selected. And then I'll just do 1 a little bit farther down. Again, same things. Holding frame. And I'm not even bothered doing, obviously, 1 at the end. That's the last frame. So I rewind this and see what it looks like. It's a little rubbery. Boom, boom, boom. Bouncing up and down. So maybe that peak values that I did, the stretching, might be a little bit too much. It's very cartoony. I mean, if you like that cartoony effect, totally can leave it. But I mean, that is a little on the bouncy side here. You know, I don't mind it too much, but maybe just for the sake of just to see, we could come into the outliner. I stopped the animation. Sorry, not the outline, the graph editor. I'm calling it that. Come into the graph editor. Again, you have to have your object selected for it to show up. Should actually dock this. You can see we have 2 green lines because they're both Y's, but I'm going to go ahead and hit scale Y. And we have this. Now, same principles apply. Translate Y, we have this instant feedback. We should kind of see the same thing logically happen when it's hitting the ground. Hitting the ground, hitting the ground, hitting the ground. So we can come in here and do the exact same thing. This will make it even snappier. And then these ones they already are flat. So this is where it's flat. And then almost, you know, then these are holding frames. So it's really important. What I'm trying to showcase here is really the values so much don't really matter as much as how you learn to read this. So here's the thing. Scales down. This is where it's squashing. It's going up and it's stretching all the way to the peak. And then it's coming back down where it hits the 1 frame. It's being held at its normal scale. Squashing, hitting the ground. Back up. Stretch. Down to the hold frame. Squash. Stretch. And then it's over. Now I probably could come in here and maybe make these linear too. Honestly, don't know if that is best, but you know, I'll go ahead and give it a shot. You know, and there we go. Let's see what that looks like. Nice. Rewind. Play. Boom. Definitely more impact on on the ground. That's fine. Maybe I'll tone down the peaks of the stretch so it's not so stretchy. So let's turn on the stretch. And again, what I'm going to do is click on this. And that's just value over, again, value. So originally it was 1.4. You can see it right here. I can select this keyframe and literally type in the value and change it, or I can come in here and just move this value down just by dragging it and moving it down. You got to be on the W key to move it. Or I could come in here and scale it, but I feel like that might be overkill. I could do it. I don't recommend you guys doing it. Maybe come in here, grab these scale values, hit the R key, and then you can do it for horizontal as well. If I click here and drag up and down, you can see we can scale here. This might be a little more difficult to do, but you could do it this way as well. So again, all I do is selected these because these are the peaks. I'm on the R key, which is scale tool. I'm going to click somewhere in the middle, technically anywhere on this horizontal line, because that's where it's 1. And I'm going to click and drag down, and it'll scale those down. So you can see we did that. So I made the stretches all uniformly less. All right, let me double check. Okay, yep, they're all less. They're all a little bit less. They're no longer even values, but that's okay. Let's see what that looks like. Rewind, play. So it's not as much scale, but it looks pretty good. We got this kind of semi-cartoony rubber ball bouncing up and down. Has a little bit of squash and stretch to it, and it looks really good. Now, the problem with what I mentioned really early on with this is I can't easily rotate this anymore. Because if I decided to want the ball to rotate, we have 2 problems. One, it's pivoting from here. What it'll do is it'll cause the ball to rotate like this, which that's weird. And 2, if we don't line this up when it hits the ground again, what's going to happen is it's going to squash and stretch from a different spot. So it's going to be stretching from, for example, this way, which that's bad. So that's the problem with setting this up like this. I can't really do rotation animation easily. How I would typically get past this, which I'm not going to do in this particular lecture video, is I've broken up the animation properties into different groups and animated them. But again, I didn't want to get down into that level of detail because a lot of people, this is the first time doing this. So just know that we're not going to be able to rotate the ball with this demo. I'll do a follow-up video in the future that showcases how to perhaps do the ball in groups. That way you can easily rotate it. So the last thing I will do with this, that we can do with this, for the sake of this learning exercise, is we can move this ball. Now, moving this ball should be very easy because, again, I personally follow the less keyframes is better philosophy. This is already set up for me. If you hit the S key, you have to clean up your frames before you do this. So you have to come in here and delete all the keyframes you're not using before this can work. So if you did do the S key, you can still do this, but you have to clean up your frames first. I don't have anything to clean up because I didn't use that many keyframes. But because I didn't use that many keyframes, I can move this ball. This is why I like it. I can move this ball in the X and the Z. It doesn't matter because there's no keyframes on this. This can be moved. This can be moved anywhere I want. There's no keyframes on it. I can move it around. And the X and the Z, and it won't matter because there's no keyframes. If you had set keyframes, then it would snap back to some point. But that gives me the freedom to do this. If I want to come in here now and say, I'm going to put this ball bouncing from this side to the other side, it is literally as simple as 2 keyframes. So I'm going to have it bounce in the X or the Z, and then I'm going to have it bounce over here to over there, and I don't have to do anything. It's just literally 2 frames. So okay, I'm going to come here and go, I'll just do X and Z. Why not? I'll select those 2 keyframes, select one, then the other, and I'm going to go on frame 1, key selected. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the very end of the animation, maybe even a little bit further. I'll go to frame 48. And then I'm going to take this sphere and I'm going to move it into the other corner. So I'm moving just X and Z. And I'm going to go key selected. And what you'll see is because there's only 2 keyframes in the X and Z, that's all I needed. I don't need anything else, unless I miss the plane. We'll see here in a second. Boom, 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 boom. It bounces. So you can see the ball bounces. There's no rotate in it, which that's unfortunate. Again, but we can do with this setup, we can do an easy bounce and easy translate across. And again, I will show you the rotate in a follow-up video, but we have to set up the ball a different way to do that. So hopefully you enjoyed this. You can definitely get a ball bounce exercise going in there. We will do another video, again, talking about the rotate, how to make it rotate, but we have to change the order of how we do things in this process to get that to work. So give that a shot. The most important thing is understanding how to read the time. And the last thing you might want to consider trying as a challenge to you, I'll go ahead and show it real quick, is remember, right now this is going very constant. What you could do is one last thing, one last bonus. So if I hit the X and the Z here, this is an S curve, and it's easing in, easing out. What you could do is you could have this be on these two values, go linear, and then have it come in and have a constant speed, then ease out. So again, all I did was I selected this first frame of the X and Z, linear. Once with these selected, you can grab the handles by doing another left click and hold, and middle mouse click and move these around. So this is a static in and ease out. So it should slow down. And the flatter this curve is, the more it'll slow down. So in return, it will be faster at the beginning too. So it depends on what you want to do. If you want the ball to come in fast and then slow down a lot, you can do that. So give that a shot for your final step as your last practice on the thing. You see it eases out. So you can see it comes in a lot quicker, almost as if it's being thrown over there. And you can see it bouncing in. So there's a lot you can do with this already. Again, important thing is establishing understanding of the graph editors. The ball bounce exercise is a great way to do that. Give that a shot, get that practice, and then we'll move on to some more advanced animations in future lectures. Hope you enjoyed that. Have a great day.